Hello guys, and welcome back to a new video. Today's video, I think it's quite interesting because imagine when you implement an web application, there is something which is super important from the user experience, mainly the user experience. So when, for example, when there is something a user needs to be notified about immediately, so it's always better to notify the user about that thing. So I guess you get the idea what we will implement in this video, and we will continue implementing it on our book social network application. So by the way, if you did not watch the full playlist and the full videos about the book social network application, I would like to invite you to check out the channel, go to the playlist and then pick the book social network playlist and then watch the videos in the order of the publish date. Now let's go back to what we will implement during this video. So I will show you and I will guide you step by step how to set up WebSocket within Spring Boot and Angular. So also I will show you what are the necessary configurations that we need to introduce, what we need to implement, and what we need to update within our application in order to display real-time notifications. It's not just about that. I will show you and I will give you a live preview about what we will implement by the end of this video. So let's go ahead and check it. So here we have two users connected to our book social network application. So on the left hand side we have the user called John, and on the right hand side we have the user called Ali. Both of them are connected to the application. So now first what we will see, or what we will implement in the application, is to enhance the UI. So we will display toasts. So here, so for example, this user or the Ali or the John user will borrow this available book. So I click on borrow. So here the first enhancement that we did within the application is, instead of displaying this boring notification or boring alert, so we display now a pop-up. All right, so now we see that this book is already borrowed or has been borrowed by the user. So let's go ahead and return it back. So now we can send it back. So here we see that from this icon, we see that the book was already returned to the user. So now I'm the owner of the book. And if I click on my returned books, so I see here that I can still approve the return of this book. All right, so let me click on return, and here we see that we have a notification from the user side, and we have another notification that has been sent immediately to the user to notify him that his book return has been approved. But if the user misses to see the notification, we implemented also this banner right here. So we see here that your book return has been approved. So now if I go back here, so if I go back to the home page, now I can borrow again this book. So here we see on the right hand side that the owner of the book has been notified that his book has been borrowed. Also, if we check right here, we see that we have the same notification. So now I will go here to the home page and I will borrow these two books which belong to the John user. So now if I click on borrow, so this one is already borrowed, this one too. Maybe let's check the return books. Let's approve this one. We see that we have a notification, and let's also approve this book and see. All right, so now if I go back and try to borrow this one, maybe I did not return it yet. So let's return this book, just return. We see that the owner of the book receives an immediate notification that his book has been returned. So now if I go and click in here, I can see the list of the notifications, and here I can approve this one or approve this book. So here we have book return has been approved. So this is what we will implement in this application. So again, let me show you the full process. So like what we enhanced. So here when I borrow this book, both like the user gets an immediate notification, and also the owner gets a notification that his book has been borrowed immediately, and also the notification is available right here. So if I borrow also this one, we see that we have the same notification. Also, when a user returns a book, so let's return this one. Also, the owner receives another notification saying that his book has been returned. All right, so here we see the list of notifications. And now if I approve a book return, we see also that we inform the other side of the user. So this is like a user by user notification system, and it's not just a notification or a classic notification. Alright, so I hope I got your attention with this quick demo about what we will see and what we will implement step by step. So before we start, if you're new to my channel, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and join me on this journey to learn more about web development and application development together. Also, don't forget to share the video with your friends and invite your friends to join us and follow us on YouTube. Thank you so much, and let's start implementing this functionality. Alright, so let's start and continue implementing and enhancing and adding new features to our Book Social Network application. Before we start, if you just see this video for the first time and you don't know what is this BSN or Book Social Network, I would like to invite you to check out my YouTube channel. Go to the channel and then go to playlists, and then you will find a Book Social Network playlist. So when you click on it, so you will find this playlist right here. So I would like to invite you to watch these videos in the same order as you see it in here. So in the beginning, we started by implementing the full application using JWT token, using Spring Boot for the backend, Hibernate, Postgres SQL for the database. We also use JWT token with email validation and so on and so forth. So just go ahead and watch this video. Then I displayed and I showed you how to deploy and to create a CI/CD pipeline and deploy the application to a real VPS or like to a real server. And then we upgraded and migrated our security to use Keycloak. So here, this is the configuration or the realm that we created, which is called Book Social Network. And I also showed you how to export and import the configuration for Keycloak. So first, I would like to invite you to check these videos if you did not watch it before, and then let's go back and continue. So as mentioned before, what we will implement is we will want to implement a real-time notification system using WebSocket. So mainly we want when a user borrows a book and then he wants to return it, the user or the owner of the book needs to receive a real-time notification at the same time when the user validates or approves or like send back the book. And once the book return is approved by the owner, also the connected user or the current user should also receive a notification. Alright, so this is the goal of this video, but before doing that, let's do some UI enhancements. So let's go back to the home page. So here, as you can see, I already borrowed this book. So now when I click on borrow this book, we will see a banner right here. So like with an error message or like a success message, it depends on what we want to display. So here, what we want to do is to enhance this one. So I want to use a pop-up to make the view and the UI a bit more or like better than that. All right, so how we can do this? First, we will use a library. So the library is called ngx-toastr. So like it's an ngx-toastr. And here, like at the time of recording this video, the most recent version is 19.0.0. So this ngx-toastr will give us a toaster or like a toast like this within our application. Before we start implementing, let's dive and let's check this library. So here, all I need to do first is just to click on Open Toast. So this is what we will see. But here we have a bunch of configurations. So let's go ahead and check them. So here we can change the toast type from success to info, warning, or error. So these are the different types. And like all we see is like different colors. What we can also do, we can add a close button. So here we can close manually the notification. We can also change the placement. So we can move it to the bottom right, bottom left, top left, or like for example top with full width as you can see in here, or like bottom center, or like bottom with full width as you can see right here. So you can play with it and you can choose whatever suits you the best. So here we can also add a progress bar. So here when we open a toast, so let me just bring this one like this. So here when we open a toast, we see that we have a progress bar right here. So maybe let me move it back to the top and then open toast. So here you see that we have a progress bar. So here this is where we can change or where we can customize the timeout. So now let's make it, for example, 8 seconds to close the pop-up. So now we can close it manually, or like just when you put it, like when you highlight on it, or like when you put the cursor on it and then move, the timer will be faster than 8 seconds. All right, so here for the progress bar animation, you can choose between increasing or decreasing. So here increasing, it will be like from 0 to the top, or like to 8 seconds, and the other way round. Here we can also prevent duplicates. So here, for example, here, let's say here title and something to display. And if I click on open toast, so you see that I'm clicking so many times, but we only see one toast. So here we can also enable the count duplicates. So here, go ahead, check this one. So here we see that we have the title, and then we have the count of the number of the duplicate toasts. So here we can also reset the timeout on duplicate. So this means just here, check the focus on the progress bar. When I open toast and then duplicated, you see that the progress bar will be reset to 0 here. So we can also play with all the different options. So here, let's just uncheck prevent duplicates, and here you can see we can have duplicate notifications. All right, so now we can move on to the code, and I will show you how to configure all this in the code, and I will show you the configuration that I chose to display this token, to display this toast, sorry, not token. All right, so now let's go back, and here all we need to do is to copy this one, go back to our code, and then all we need to do is to open the terminal, and don't forget to be under the folder book network UI. So let me navigate there. So book network UI, and all I need to do is to paste the command npm I for install ngx-toastr, and all I need to do is to hit enter, and then the dependency will be automatically installed. So here, if we check here, we will see that we have our ngx-toastr with a version 19.0.0, and this is the package log.json. All this I explained already in the video, or in the first video where we started implementing our book social network. All right, so the first thing we will start with is to configure our toaster. So let's go ahead and do it. So the first thing that we need to do is to go to our source app and then app module.ts. The first thing that we need to do is to import our toaster module and then provide the required configurations that we want to include. So here in the imports part from our app module.ts, let's import our toastr module. So if you don't see it, or like if it doesn't import automatically, all we need to do is to go up and then let's type it manually. So here, let's import our toaster module from ngx-toastr, and here we have it available for us. So what we need to do here, we need to initialize it. So here we can pass a for root method, and then all I need to do is to pass the different parameters. So first I want to have my progress bar as discussed before, and then I want to include also the close button. I want also to have the newest on top. So like I want always to display the newest notification on top, and then tap to dismiss. So like when we click or when we tap on the notification, it will be dismissed or closed. And then we have a position class, and for this one I will use the class provided by the documentation, and I think it's toast bottom right, to have it on the bottom right, or you can have it, for example, top right, bottom left, and so forth. And finally, I want to change the timeout to 8 seconds, just in order to have it displayed a bit more longer for you to see it, and not to be or not to get closed quickly. So now this is what we need to do to configure our toaster module. So now let's go ahead and try it for the first time. So here, if you remember, in our book social network, if I try to borrow a book which is already borrowed, I need to display this error message. So how to do that? I will go back here and then module and then book, and here I have my book list. All right, so in this book list, if you remember, we should have a borrow book method. So here we have borrow book. So here we have the level success, like this is how we display the message. So here we have the level success, and in case a book which is already borrowed, we will display it in this way. So here, for example, let me just change this one. So I will here my message just to remind you about it. So here we see now my message, because what we used to display here is the previous message, or like the message which is returned by the backend. Alright, so let's go ahead and change this one and see how this toaster will look like. So first of all, let's go to the constructor and let's import, or like let's inject our toaster or toast service. Alright, so here I will have my private toast service of type toastr service or toaster service. And here all I need to do is to replace what we just saw together. All I need to do is to replace this one and also replace this one. So here on error, I can also remove the console log. And what I need to do here, I will delete all this and I will just copy this one. And then all I need to do is this .toast service. And then we have a method called error. And for this one, we just need to pass the error message. So as you can see, the first one is the message, and then we have the title. So the title, let's call it oops, for example, in case we have something wrong. So let's go ahead and check this one. And now if I click on it, so here we have something wrong, or like not something wrong, but I guess we missed something because we need to import the style for this one, or like for this ng toaster. So let's go back to our code, and in here let's open our styles.css. So and here in the line 4, or like after the line 3, all we need to do is to import. So let's use the import, and then all I need to do is to import ngx-toastr /toaster. So now we should be good and we should see the toaster. So here, this is how we see, or like what we will see in our application. So if I click again, so now we have something looking much better. So let's go back and try to continue and enhance all these parts. All right, so now I will use this toaster service, and then we have a success method. And here for this success, for example, we can use this book successfully added to your list as a message. So here, and then we can say, for example, just success. And here maybe let's use done, and we can clean up the rest of the code. All right, so this is for the book list component. We can also go ahead and check it and add all the notifications in the different places. All right, so the next one, let's go to manage component. So here we have, manage book component. So this one, and in the same way, let's inject our private toast service, which is of type toast service. And here, let's go back and see where we display some messages. So here, when we successfully create a book, so what we do here, we just navigate, and also let's go ahead and add a message right here. So here, let's have a success, and let's say, for example, book information has been successfully saved, just to display a message. And here, let's say also done, for example. And now we are good. So in case something goes wrong, so here we can also still display the validation errors. And instead of this console.log, let's use this .toaster service .error. And here, let's say, for example, something went wrong. So something went wrong. And here, let's say maybe oops as a title for our toast. All right, so let's go ahead and check what is the next component that we can also update. So let's check return books. So like what we can do, or like what we want to do, is to change everywhere that we have, or like where we display like messages in this way, we want to replace them with a toaster. All right, so let's, in the same way, in the constructor, let's inject our toast service, which is of type toast service. And then let's go here, I think it's in the line 81. So then I can clean up the code and remove all this. So here this .toast service .success, and we can use this text, and here we can say also done. Let's see, I think we still have some message in the borrowed book list. So let's check here if we are displaying some messages, or we can also add one. So maybe also here when we return a book and give feedback, we can also display a message to tell the user that the book has been successfully returned. So in the same way, let's go to the constructor and then private toast service of type toast service. And in here, I guess in this place, what we can do, this .toast service .success, and what we can say, for example, book has been returned and the owner is notified. So I'm preparing the message for the next part. And here, let's say, for example, success, and I guess that's it. Maybe if we forget something, we will update it later on. All right, so now let's go ahead and check. So now, for example, let's return a book. And here, let's say, for example, I want to give it 5, my feedback, and then return a book, or like rate the book and return. So here we see that we have our success or success notification. All right, so now we made the changes that we want. So here, in case we have something wrong, and in case, for example, let's create a new book and see. All right, so I will just choose any one. So just few information, and then let's click on save. And here we see that we have book information has been successfully saved. And again, if I update, so here, let's say my book by Alibu, and here Alibu as an author name, this is the ISBN, and here something awesome is getting created. So like this is what we want to implement. And now let's update the book, and maybe let's choose a different picture. And here we see that we updated our book. Maybe let me change the picture. And all right, so I will use my profile picture. All right, so now we have all the toasts working fine and well. Now what we want to implement next is to implement a WebSocket. So I want to set up a WebSocket, or like a notification system. So what I want to do is when here, so for example, when I borrow a book, so now I cannot borrow the book because it's already borrowed. But when I borrow a book and return it, I want that the owner of this book, I want him to get notified immediately that there is a book that has been returned. And when the owner approves the book return, also the user that borrowed that book needs to be notified immediately. So this is what we will implement next. We will start by implementing the backend, and then we will implement the front end, and I will show you step by step what we need to implement exactly in the backend and in the front end. So stick to the video and let's continue. All right, so now let's start building and configuring our WebSocket configuration. So the first thing we need to do is to add few dependencies. So for that, we need two dependencies. The first one is our WebSocket dependency, and the second one, since our application is secured using Keycloak, or even if it's secured using JWT, we need to add another security dependency, which is the Spring Security Messaging. So let's go ahead and add them first. So here, after validation or any place else, so I will add a new dependency, and the first one, as I mentioned, it's the Spring Boot Starter WebSocket. So this one, and it comes from the package org.springframework.boot. The second one, as I mentioned, it will be the security dependency, and it's called Spring Security Messaging, and it's also coming from the same group ID, which is org.springframework.security. Here, now let's click on this one to load all the Maven changes, and this will download the two dependencies into our project. Now the next step is to go into our folder structure or our classes, and I will create a new class and I will call it WebSocket config, and I will put it into a new package called WebSocket. So let me call it WebSocket config. And now let's add this one. And now let's start configuring our WebSocket. So here, let me just fix this typo. And the first thing, we need the configuration annotation, since this is a configuration class. And then we want to enable WebSocket message broker. And then let's add our required args constructor from Lombok. So we don't need to create a constructor, so it will provide a constructor for us. And also I will give it an order. So I will give an order to this configuration class, and I will give it a high order. So here I will use ordered dot highest precedence, and I will add 99 just to make it a bit more higher. All right, so now we have the basic annotations. Now all I need to do is to implement WebSocket message broker configurer. So this is the interface that we need to implement. So here, as you can see, we do not need to implement all the methods, since here, so here let me click on download source. So since here all the methods here have the default keyword, so that's why we don't see any red lines here that telling us to implement methods. But I will tell you what methods, or what are the methods that we need to override. So here let's generate, or let's override some methods. By the way, you can see the shortcuts, or the shortcuts that I'm using here in blue. So let's override some methods. So the first one is called configure message broker. So this method right here, the one that has a registry as a parameter. So the registry is of type message broker registry. So what we want to do, let's delete this line right here. And all I want to do, first I want to use my registry dot enable simple broker. So here I will use user instead of topic. So we want to have a broker, or a pipe for each user. So I want my broker to work for each user. And then I will have registry dot set application destination prefix to be / app. All right, then finally I need something else. So now I want to set the user destination prefix. By the way, here this is the auto completion from the most recent version of IntelliJ. That's why you see when I'm typing something, it's trying to propose something, to propose what I want to do. All right, so here the final one is to set the user destination prefix, which will be /user. Then we need to implement or to override another method. So again, let's go to override methods, and now let's search for add argument resolver. So this add argument resolver is important. Why? Because we know that our application is secured. So now we want to tell our WebSocket configuration that we have an authentication principal argument resolver. So here let's say argument resolver dot add, and here instead of this new handler, so I will add a new authentication principal argument resolver. So let's import this one, import class, and we are done with this part. Then there is another method that we will need also to override. So let's override method, and this one called register stomp endpoints. So this method will allow us to register the different stomp endpoints that we want to use. So here I will use my registry dot add endpoint. So here I will call it /ws for WebSocket, and here also I will set the allowed origins. So just to remind you that our application is secured and we do not accept any origin. So for this one, I will set it to HTTP localhost, and then I will use the 4200, which is my front-end application. All right, so here WS for my endpoint. So this will be my basic or my principal endpoint, and then I will set the allowed origins, and finally I will use sock.js. So now finally we need to implement or to override a final method, which is the converter that we want to use. So maybe it depends I think by default it's JSON, but we can also override it. But if you need, for example, a different format like XML or plain text or anything else, you can also change or adjust the message converter. So let's go ahead and override this method, and this one is called configure message converters, which is this method right here. So let's override this one, and now all I need to do, let's finally just return false. And now I will use a default content type resolver. Let's call it resolver equals new content type resolver. So here all I need to do is to set my default MIME type, and for this case it will be application/JSON. All right, so it's from media type dot application/JSON. So this one, let me remove the rest, and here also we can add static import to this one. All right, so the next one, we need to add a mapping like the converter that we want to use. So for this one, we can use the mapping Jackson converter. So the class is called mapping to message, or mapping Jackson to message converter. Let's call it converter equals new mapping Jackson to message converter. And then I will add my converter dot set object mapper, and for this one I can use the default object mapper from Jackson. All right, so then let's give it the content type resolver. So it will be converter dot set content type resolver, which is my resolver, the one I just created few moments ago. And finally, here I will use my message converters, this parameter that I have right here, because as you can see here, we can define a list of message converters. So here in the beginning, I know that we only have, or we only want to use or to convert a JSON type. That's why I'm adding only this one. But if I need another one, so all I need to do is add other converters here. All right, and all you need to do is finally to add this message converters dot add converter. All right, so now we are done with the configuration of our WebSocket, and let's see what we did. All right, let me optimize the imports, and now let's go and check what we did. So in the beginning, we created a class called WebSocket config, implements an interface called WebSocket message broker configuration, and we added this bench or this list of annotations. So the first one, configuration, just to mention that this is a configuration class, so it will be picked by Spring Framework, and Spring will process the different configuration that we implemented in here. Then we wanted to enable the WebSocket message broker, and we gave it a high order, so Spring will process it from the beginning. Then we overridden three or four main methods. So the first one is to configure the message broker, and here we enabled our simple broker, and we gave it a destination prefix to user, since we mentioned before that we want to send a notification per user. So here we set also the application destination prefix, so it will be /app, and now we wanted to be a user destination prefix. That's why we gave it the /user as a method, as a broker configuration. Then we needed to implement another method, which is register stomp endpoints, which is first we added a new endpoint /ws for WebSocket, and then we set the allowed origin, so you can set it to start to allow anything, or here in our case we wanted to be more specific, and we only allowed our front-end application to connect to our WebSocket. And then finally with talk.js, because we want to use talk.js. And then, since just another reminder, since our application is secured, we want also to add an authentication principal argument resolver. That's why we had to override the add argument resolver to our configuration class. And finally, I showed you how to override and to configure a message converter. So this is how, or this will tell Spring the way we want to convert our object, or like the object or the data that we want to communicate between our backend and front end, or like the front end can be any other type of consumer. It can be another mobile application or any other type of application. All right, so before moving forward, because we are almost done with the backend side, so what we need to do is to go to the security, and here in the security config, we want to update something. So here you remember that we have the list of the requests that we want to authorize. All right, so you see this list dot permit all, but here we want also to add something else, which is the WS or the /WS or the WebSocket configuration that we just added few moments ago. So I'm talking about this one, since in the beginning we want to connect to our WebSocket. All right, and here that's why we want to authorize this one in order to make Angular or any front-end application be able to connect to our WebSocket. All right, so now we are done with the front end. We can now move on and implement the front end side and create the notification component, how to consume it, and how to do all this stuff. But before moving there, we still need to add something. So here, what we want to do, we will need to build a notification system and a notification service in order to send different notifications. So let's move on and do it. And finally, we will implement and we will finalize the front end part. All right, so now let's create the notification. So here I will create a new package. I will call it notification. And inside it, I will create a notification class. So this class, it will be like a simple class, and I will give it a few annotations. So first I will start with a getter and then a setter, and also an all args constructor and a no args constructor. I will also use the builder annotation and the toString method. All right, so this class will contain few parameters. So these parameters, first we will have a private notification status. So I'll just call it this way and we will create it. This will be an enum. So let's call it status. And then we will have a private, by the way, I really like the new suggestions and the new features of IntelliJ. It's really nice. So I will call this one message. All right, and finally I will have a private string book title. And now let's go ahead and create this enum. So I will create it in the same package, and this enum will contain three different status. So the first one, so if the book is borrowed, the second one, if the book is returned, and the last one, it will be return approved. All right, so now this is our enum. So this just to are the different status that we want to send from the backend to the user, whether the book was borrowed, returned, or the return was approved. So this are like the features or the functionalities that we have within our application. In case in the future you need something else, you can just extend this notification status enum. So now we created the notification object. So then what I need to do, I want to create a service that will send a notification to a specific user. So here I will create a class and I will call it notification service. So this notification service, it will contain one method. So first I will mark it as a service, so it will be automatically injected. And here I will need my required args constructor and SLF for J just to log few information when we send a notification. So first thing, I will need a private final. So we need the final keyword because we want it to be automatically injected. And here we have a simp message template. So I will call it messaging template. So this is the object or the class that will send a notification. All right, so here I will create a public void method. I will call it send notification. So this send notification, it will take few parameters. So here I need the user ID, and then I need the notification object itself. So notification, and I will call it notification. So now all I need to do, first I will log.info. So here sending notification, or like let's type our own message. So here sending WebSocket notification to the user ID with payload. So here we can see what we sent to our user. So here we have user ID, which will go as the first parameter. So here, this is how we can map a parameter. So this one, it will be for the user, and the second one, it will be the notification object. All right. So then all I need to do is to use my messaging template and then convert and send. But here it's not just convert and send, but convert and send to user. So here, this is just the auto completion of IntelliJ. Maybe I will disable it. So, but here we need our user ID, and then we need the topic, which is /notification, which is the destination. And then we need the object that we want to send, which is our notification object. So just to remind you, this object right here. All right, so now we have our notification service implemented. So as I mentioned, we have only one method, send notification. First, we need to inject our simp messaging template. And this simp messaging template, it has a method called convert and send to user, and we need to pass the user ID as a parameter, the destination. So this will, like, this one will be created, so like it will be /user ID /notification, and then this is the payload that we want to send. All right, so now let's go ahead and go to our book service and try to include, or like to send notifications to the user whenever the user borrows a book, return a book, or even when the return of a book is approved. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. All right, now comes the easy part. So what we need to do, we need to go to our book service right here, and all we need to do is to send few notifications. So here we have a bunch of methods, and where we want, or like when we want to send a notification, when a user borrows a book or return a book, or when the user approves the return of a book. So the first thing we need to do is to inject our private, well, not user repository, but our notification service, and let's call it notification service. Now let's go and search for our borrow book. So update and then update archived, and here we have borrow book. So when we need to send a notification, so ideally we need to send it once the book is saved. So like once we save the transaction, then after that we can send the notification. But I know you know that I'm a bit lazy, so I will do it in here. So here I will have my notification service and then send notification. So the user ID will be my book dot get created by. So like the one, or like the owner, or like the user who created the book is the one needs to be notified, the owner of the book. And then we need to send our notification, or to create our notification object. So I will use my notification dot builder dot build. That's why I added the build annotation. So in here, first I can set a status to borrow it. So I can also import this one statically. So we want to notify the owner that his book was borrowed, and then a message. So here we can say, for example, your book has been borrowed, and let's fix this typo right here. And finally we get the book title, which is our book.getTitle. So this when we borrow a book. Then we also want to notify the user when the book is returned. So in the same way, here after that, or like after setting, or like before saving the book, we want to send a notification. But in this case, what I will do, I will save this one. So I will create a variable and I will call it saved equals this one. All right. And in here, I will just remove this .getID and I will set it later on. All right, so now all I need to do is just to return save.getID, and in between I will create, or like I will send the notification. So here I have notification service.send notification, and then in the same way it's book.created by. So this is the person or the user that I want to notify, and then notification.builder.build. So now we want to send a status of type returned. So returned in here, and then I have a message. So your book has been returned, for example. By the way, I really like, so like this was suggested by IntelliJ. So this is really awesome. I really like this new feature. And then .book title, and then book.get title. And finally, when a book return, when we return a book and the owner approves the return of this book. In that case, we want also to send a notification. So in the same way, I will create a var and I will call saved equals this one, and let's remove the get ID from the end, and then we can just return saved.get ID. So just to be compliant and not to mess anything within our application. And by the way, here we forgot a semicolon. Let's fix this one. And now let's go back. And now let's send notification service.send notification. But this time we want to get the user from the book transaction history .get created by. So the one who created the transaction, because when we borrow a book, so the created by is the user who borrowed the book. Now, when the book return is approved, we need to inform the user that already borrowed the book that his book return has been approved by the owner of the book. All right, so now let's go back and continue. Notification.builder.build, and now we have return approved. So return approved, and then a message. We can say, for example, your book return has been approved. So your book, all right, so that was not the best. Your book return has been approved. And finally, the book title. So it's the book.getTitle. And let's not forget the semicolon right here. And in this way, we are done with sending all the notifications from the backend. So what we need to implement next is just to go to the front end, and I will show you step by step what dependencies we need to include and how to set up WebSocket connection with the backend, and how to consume and keep the connection open, consume the notifications, display them one by one. So let's go ahead and do it. All right, now let's move to the front end part. So here I will open my package.json and I will install manually, or type manually, the dependencies that we need. So I will tell you step by step what we need for that. So first, the first dependency we need is a dependency called net. All right, and its most recent version, if I'm not wrong, is 1.0.2. We will run an npm install later on. So here we need also another dependency called kill. So these are the dependencies, or the required dependencies, in order to use or to implement WebSocket. So here I think the most recent is 2.0.2, but okay, let's keep this one. This should be fine. And then we need also another dependency. We need another dependency called sock.js client, and the version is 1.6.1. So let's include it. And we need also, finally, we need another one, which is stomp.js. So stomp.js, and the version is 2.3.2 as suggested by IntelliJ. So here there is something that I don't want to include it right now, but I will show it to you when we get the errors. So first I will run my npm install. So don't ask again. So here npm npm install to run and download the dependencies. So now once it's downloaded, we no longer have these error messages, or these warnings. So let's go ahead and check it later on. All right, so after updating and adding the dependencies, what we want to do is to update our menu component. So let me start the backend and the front end, and let's see what we have. So here, let me run the backend. So npm run start, and this will run my front end as well. And then let's go to the browser. And in here, let's refresh. So I will connect with one of my users, which is john@mail.com, and password for the password. So here what we want to do, I want to include something, or a notification panel right here. And when we click it, we want to display the list of the available notification that we have. And also later on, I will update the connected user, because I guess the last time we forgot to do it, and I will show you how to do that in a few moments. All right, so this is what we will be building right now. But before doing that, what I want to do, or what I want to show you, is how to set up a WebSocket connection using Angular framework. So here, let's go to the UI, and then source, app, modules, and then book. So here, let's go to our menu component. So I will open my menu component.ts file, and in here, I will start setting up the connection of my WebSocket. So in here, I will start by creating a variable. I will call it socket client of type any, and I will initialize it to null. Then the first thing I would like to do is to extract this code. So we see what we will implement in here, which will be directly inside the ngx-toastr method. So I will extract this one. So I will just cut it, and then I will do a private, and I will call the method, for example, navigation handler. And in this navigation handler, I will just paste the code and call it in here. So this dot navigation handler. We can also, like the rest of the code, we can implement it in a separate method, but I will just keep it in here inside the ngx-toastr, and later on you can do it yourself. All right, so here the first thing what I want to do, if I have my keyclock service dot keyclock dot token parsed and dot sub. So the sub, we know that the subject is the user ID. So we want to receive and send notifications based on the user ID. So we want to subscribe to something like, as we mentioned before, it will be /user / the user ID, which is something like this / notification. All right, / notifications. This is the one that we configured in here. So let's just remind you before we move on. So like this, we know everything. So here, if we go to main, Java, and then WebSocket. So here first we set up a connection per user. So like set user destination prefix, which is /user. And then we know when we send a notification it will be /user / the user ID. And then within the notification service, we send it in this way. So it's user ID and then notification. All right. So this is how I know the URL of my WebSocket. All right. So let's remove this one and let's continue the implementation. So here I will create or declare a variable WebSocket equals new sock.js, and then I need to provide the URL. So the URL, it will be http:// and then localhost 8088, which is my port /API /v1 /WebSocket. All right, but now we see that sock.js is not available and we are not even able to import it. So let's go ahead and import it manually. All right, so I will say import, not in, but just import star as sock.js from, and here sock.js -client. All right, so let me fix this typo. But here we see that sock.js client is not available. So here we have whether we can add tsignore, or here we can try to install types /sock.js -client. But I know that many of you, maybe you are using a different IDE and you do not have this proposition or this fix. So how to fix this one? So all we need to do is to go in here and to the package.json. And here, all I need to do, I need to install the @types /sock.js client. All right. And here we just need to check or like to pick the most recent version or the correct version that you are using for your project. All right. So here for the sock.js client, I will use, so not again. So I will use maybe the version which is available 1.5.4. And in the same way, we will need to install a new type. All right. So the other type will be stomp.js, because we will see or we will face the same error right here. So I will anticipate it. So now you know where to add this one. So here, just to remind you, it's inside the dev dependencies, not the dependencies. All right. So here, let's add the other type, which is, it will be types /stomp.js. All right, and the version we can use the 2.3.9. All right, now all I need to do is to run npm install to install the dependencies, and then everything should be fine. And even when we come back here, the error should be gone, as you can see right now. All right, so now you know how to fix this by your own. All right, now let's go back and continue connecting to our WebSocket. So I add the semicolon. And then what I want to do, I have this .socket client equals my stomp, and then I have a method called over my WebSocket. All right. So we don't have the stomp yet. We will do it in the same way. So here, import star as stomp from stomp.js. And we are done with this one. All right, let's go back here. So here we have, here we are declaring, or like we are initiating our WebSocket. And now we want to open a stomp over this WebSocket. All right, so I want to initialize, or like to initiate a connection between my front end and my back end over this WebSocket that I just declared in here. So now all I need to do is to write the following: this .socket client, and then we have a method called connect. So this connect method, it takes few parameters. So here we can pass some headers if we have headers, and in our case we need to pass our authorization code. All right, so the authorization code should be the bearer token. So colon, and then we can also remove the space, and then it will be bearer space, and then I will get the token from my kicklog service. So this .kicklog service .kicklog.token, and then we need to implement a callback method. All right, so this will be an arrow function. So this means this method will be executed when we are able to connect to our WebSocket. All right, so here let's just say console.log connecting to WebSocket, for example, and let's see if this is gonna work or not. So here, now let's go back to the browser and see if we have our connection set up or not. So let me close all this, and here let's go to books, and we have something wrong. All right, so this is quite important. So now we have everything configured. So here, if I go back and remove or like comment out this block of code, so I will just do a cut. So the page, or like everything is working fine. But when I bring it back, when I bring this code back, we have this issue. So, and now let me show you how to fix this one. So here, this means that we have something, method or a parameter or a property called global that is used or required by our WebSocket and stomp.js library in order to connect. But this one is not defined, and it cannot find it. That's why it's throwing global is not defined. And the way to fix this one is simply we need to come here, and at the same level of inside the source here, I will create a new file, and I will call it window-global-fix.ts. So for this one, it's just one line of code. So here I have window as any dot global equals window. So this is the fix for it, but it's not the end yet. What we need to do, we need to go to our angular.json file. So in here, and then we need to declare this file. All right. So I think it should be inside the architect and then builder. Yes, architect, build, and then inside the polyfills. All right. So here, what I need to do is just to declare this file. So we created it under src, so like you can create it anywhere else, but the most important side is just to here to put the correct path to that file. So we called it window global fix-fix.ts. So here I need to restart the application because I told you before that when we update the angular.json file, we need to rerun the application because they are not hot swapped. All right, now let's wait once the application is up and running. But here we have a compilation error. So it says that Book Social Network, okay, is missing from TypeScript compilation. All right, so to fix this one, we need to go here inside this tsconfig app.json, and then we need to source it as well. So like we need to make it available. So here we have the source main.ts. In the same place, we need also to put our src/window global fix.ts file. So now let me restart, and let's see if everything now is up and running. All right, so compiled successfully. And now if I go back to the browser and refresh the window, we see that we have WebSocket opened, opening WebSocket, and here we should see connecting to WebSocket. So this means that we are connected to our WebSocket. And by the way, we are connecting, and here this is the authorization bearer token. By the way, you can disable this one, or like this this output, because you should not expose it in the logs. But I think this one is only by default enabled in the development mode of our application. So now we are able to establish a connection to our WebSocket. This means what we implemented, or the configuration we implemented in the backend, is fine and correct, and as well as the configuration that we are still implementing in the front end is also well and correct. All right, so now let's go back to our IDE and let's continue implementing here. All right, so I will remove this one. So now what I want to do, so I want to create a subscription. All right, so here I will move a little bit up. So here I will create an object and I will make it private. So I will call it notification subscription of type any. All right, so here I will go back now. So here I will have this my notification subscription. So this will hold the subscription for my user equals this dot socket client dot subscribe. So this is what we want to do. So we want to subscribe to a specific topic. So for what we want to subscribe? For this one, for the following. All right, so I want to subscribe to user slash, now I need to subscribe, or like I need to get the connected user. So I know the connected user is this one. All right, so I will paste it in here and then slash notifications. So this is what I already configured in my backend. So the subscribe takes another method, so or a callback method. So it will be message, and for now I will make it of type any. And what I want to do, so here we are missing the arrow function. Let me format the code, and now everything seems fine. So here I will just do message.log. I will just log it for now. And what I will do, so here we don't need to refresh. So here I will just try to open another connection, or like to connect another user. So I will use a private navigation and I will put them side by side in here. All right, so here let's also connect to our localhost 2200, and here I guess, or let me check the users. So let me refresh this page. So this is my kicklog admin, if you remember, and now I can check the users. So let's connect with this one. So ali@mail.com, and I guess I have password for all of them. All right, so now what we have our list of books. All right, so let's go back in here and let's open the terminal, the console, and also let's open it in here. All right, so now we know that the owner of this book is this one. So here, if I go to my books, we see that these are the two books. All right, so now in the backend, what we implemented is when a user borrows a book, the owner of the book should receive a notification. So now what I did in the code here, when we receive a notification, so when the backend sends a notification, I just want to log it. All right, so here maybe let me add this one. So here, for example, receiving notification. All right, so now let's go back to the browser, and now let me clean everything. All right, let's refresh again. So this one is fine. Let's refresh this page, and everything seems to be fine. Now, from this connected user, I will try to borrow this book from this owner. So this owner should receive a notification saying that receiving a notification and the payload that we have. All right, so let's click on borrow. So here we have done books successfully added to your list, but we see this one. So sometimes you will see this error because of the browser animation. Maybe it's not supported by the current version of your browser, but we can ignore this one. The most important thing is that we did not receive a notification from the left hand side. Let's go ahead and check why we have this issue. So first, let's check the information or the logs from our backend. So the backend says that sending WebSocket notification to this user, which is the one on the left hand side, with the payload, your book has been borrowed, and so forth. So now let's go ahead and check why we have this issue. So the way I would check this is, first I would like to check the URLs. So here we have the user, and we have the user from the kicklog service, and then slash notifications. All right, so let me check. Maybe we made a typo here in our notification service. And yes, exact. So here it should be notifications, not notification, or we can change this one to notification. But let's restart our backend and let's try again and see if we have the book borrowed or not. Meanwhile, I will just go to my book transaction and remove the book I just borrowed. And now we can borrow again the same book. So let's go back to the browser. Let's connect. And let's connect also here. So by the way, here when we restarted the backend, we saw that oops, lost connection to our WebSocket. That's why we need to reconnect and make sure that we have this connected output. So now when I click again on borrow, here we see that receiving notification. So this means our WebSocket is working fine and we are able to consume and to connect to our WebSocket. So here what we have the status, we have the message, but you see that the body is not formatted. All right, so let's go ahead and continue implementing this one, and let's continue formatting and implementing the rest of the application. So let's go back here. So now we fixed the issue. We know where it is coming from. Now let's continue the implementation. So I will remove this console log. And what I want to do first, I would like to create an object. So here inside the menu, I will create a notification class. So notification.ts. So in this notification.ts, it will be similar to what we created in the Java code. So here I will do export interface and I will call it notification. So here we will have a status. So let's add the interrogation mark to make it not mandatory. Here I will have borrowed, like the same status that we have. So this is the type. So in this way we are declaring a type. So this means that this status is an enum containing the three following value. So here we have returned, and finally we have return approved, exactly as we have in the backend. So here you need to be careful about this one. All right, then we have our message and it is of type string. And finally we have the book title, of course, of type string. Let's also add this one right here, and we are done with this notification object. Now let's go back to the menu component and let's finish implementing this part right here. All right, so first I will create a const object, call it notification equals json.parse, and I want to parse my message. All right, but here it should be message.body as we saw in the console log. All right, so then if I have my notification, so if my notification is different or is not null or undefined, I can do the following. So here what I want to do, we can just display it. All right, but before displaying it, I want to do some check. So here I will add it to do because we want to do something later on. And now all I need to do is switch the notification.status. So here we can also give it a type if you want. So here of type notification. All right, maybe we imported the wrong one, or let me just re-import it again. So we have this notification. All right, let's remove the rest. So here depends, or like switch the notification status. So here first case borrowed. All right, so in case the user or the notification that we receive is of type borrowed, so here all I want to do this .toast service. So let me inject it in here. So here I will have private toast service of type toast r service. So here I will do this .toast service .info. So here what I want to display is my notification .message and then notification .book title. So I want to display the message and the title will be the book title. For example, like the book Spring Boot has been borrowed, and so forth. And here, of course, don't forget the break keyword. Now case, the second one, which is returned. What I want to do in the same way, I just want to display message. So here for this one, I will just want to change the color so it will be a warning, and in the same way it will be always message and book title. And finally, let me duplicate this one, and here let's say return approved, and for the return approved, let's say success, and again message and book title. All right, so now let's go back to the browser and to our application and test this one. All right, so let's go, and here I will borrow again this book. So here we see that Coco eating banana, your book has been borrowed. So this is what we are seeing exactly right here. So we receive a notification and the owner knows that his book has been borrowed. So since here we are in my books page, so we receive the notification. Now if I return a book, so here my borrowed books, and now so let's say for example I will return this one. So let's give it a feedback as a 5, something right here, rate and return a book. So here we see that Coco eating banana, your book has been returned. So this is what we just implemented right now. And now if we go here to my returned book, so Coco eating banana, so when I approve the return of this book, so here when I click on approve, I would like to see a notification coming on the right hand side of my browser. So here if I approve it, so here your book return has been approved and book return approved. So this is like the classic or the simple notification that we display, but this one, the one we saw on the right hand side, it was from the notification. So here let's also maybe approve this one, or okay, so I guess this is all we have. All right, let's return this one. And now we see that my book by Alibu has been returned. So now if I refresh this page, I can also approve the return, and we see that we have the pop-up or the notification displayed on the right hand side. All right, so this is great. Now we can continue and implement something which might look a bit more better and nice. So now let me go back to the home here, and we will go back to the code, and we will check this part later on, or maybe for a better way to see everything. So let me make it like this. All right, so now we have both the application, or like both users in the same place. So now let's go back to the code and let's finish or continue implementing that one. So now in the menu component, now let's go to the HTML page and let's add some code to what we want to implement. So here, if we go to menu component.html, what I want to do is I want to add something that looks nice. So like I want to add a bell right here with a notification. When the user receives a new notification, I want to display it in this list right here. All right, so first let's see what we need as properties. So the first thing that I will have a few properties right here. So in the beginning, all I want to do, I want to create an object or like a property. I will call it unread notifications count, and I will set it to 0. All right, and then I will have a list of notifications, which is an array of notification, and I will initialize it to an empty array. So now what I want to do, I want to update a little bit the code that we have right here. So you remember this to do right here. So for this to do, what I want to do is when we receive a notification, so I will do this .notification.nshift. So nshift, I want to push it to the top of the array. So what I want to push, I want to nshift my notification object. All right. So I want to unshift this notification, and then of course here after parsing the notification, here I want to do this dot unread notification plus plus to increase the count. So I want to display this count later on. So now let's go back in here, and inside this form, so I want my notification to be displayed next to this search bar right here. All right, so at this level I will create a div. So I will give it a class drop down, and then I will give it a cursor pointer, and now I will add a click event. So when I click on it, so I will reset the unread notification count to 0. So this is the first part. Then I will create an I with a class. So maybe let me close it like this. So I will give it a class fast or font awesome fa bell as an icon, and I will give it a position relative, and I will give it an h4 just to make it a bit bigger. So I will show you step by step how this is gonna look like. So here, in order to use, because like what we want to implement a drop-down menu. So for the drop-down menu, after this I will create a UL class. So this one, I will give it a drop-down menu class. So here, I will have an li, and then let's keep it empty for now, and inside it, so let's add, for example, a span, and I will show you the output. So this is a notification. So I will show you the output of this one, and then we will continue implementing it step by step. All right, so inside this I class, what I want to do, I want, when I click on the icon, I want to drop down, or like to display the drop down of the list of my notification. So here there is a property called data bs and then toggle. So this will be my toggle equals drop down, and then I will use the area expanded. I will set it to false, so I don't want to expand the area, and then I will add a span inside it. So here I will have a span, and then I will give it a class. So the class equals position absolute, because here we have, or like we gave it a position relative, so the element inside it should have a position absolute. So here I want to make it top 0 and then start 100. So you will see the output in just few moments. And then I want to translate it in the middle, and I will give it some padding, and finally I will give it a background danger. So I want to make it red, and I will give it a border and a border light. So let me fix this one. This one should be border, not border, and border light. And finally, I want it to be a rounded circle. All right. So now here I will add another span inside this one. So it will be a span inside a span. So another one. And this one, I will give it a class and visibility hidden. So I want it to be hidden. And here, let's say, for example, new alerts, or new alerts in this way. So let's jump quickly and see the output of this one. So this is what I'm trying to build right here. All right. So I'm trying to build this notification bell with this red circle right here. So that's why I'm using this position relative right here, and the position absolute for this span. And for this span, what I'm doing, it's position absolute because the parent is relative, and I want it to be top 0. So like this means I want it to be in the top, and then I want to translate it to the middle, and I gave it just a padding and a background danger with a border and border line light and rounded circle to have this circle output. All right, so now let's go back to this part right here. So now let's continue building this one. So here I will use an ng-for because I know the list of my notification is inside the notification object. So let notification of notifications, and in here all I need to do is to display them one by one. All right, so here I have my span, and let me give it a class which is a drop down item, and then I will give it a cursor pointer and a border bottom as a separator for my different elements. All right, so now I will add an eye. So this one, it will be just a notification or an icon just for the notification. I will use the FastFA bell as we did before, and now all I need to do is the following. So I will add the space. So here and mbsp for a space, and then all I need to do is to display my notification. So this one, it will be notification dot book title. So notification dot book title, and then space colon space, and then I will display the message itself. So notification dot message. All right, so now let's go and check this one. All right, so now when I click, so here maybe let me open the dev tools. So when I click in here, we see nothing happens. So this is because we need to import something. So here, let's go back to the code, and then in our angular.json file, and then when we go to scripts right here, we need to import the script. So it will be because we are using the bootstrap, so we need to import the bootstrap.bundle.min.js. So it will be under node modules /bootstrap, and then dist, so for the distribution, and then JS because we want the JavaScript, and then we have bootstrap.bundle.min.js. So we can import the minified one. All right, so this one should be bundle, and now we are done. So I need to restart the application again. As I mentioned, when we update the angular.json file, we need to restart the application. So now let's go back and check the output. And here we see that we have this circle which is empty right now. So now let's try to borrow a new book. So I will refresh this page and let's try to borrow this one. So now we see that we have my book has been, or like my book, your book has been borrowed. And if I borrow another one, so also we see right here that we have two notifications. All right, so if, for example, if the user misses this one, and then if he clicks on it again, he will see the notification. In the same way right here, so here for this user, we don't have any notification. And now if, for example, we try to return this book, and let's say like this, return. So here we see that we have 3 notifications in here, and now we don't have any notification yet. So now my returned book, if we go back here and approve this one, so we have Coco eating banana has been approved. And if I open this one, we see the notification right here. All right, so now before we finish, as I promised in the beginning, we said that before we forgot to implement or to update the connected username. So let's go ahead and do it right now. So in order to do that, all we need to do is to go to the menu component, .ts file, scroll to the bottom, and then so I will create a get method and I will call it username. So here all I need to do is to return the following. So return this .kicklog service and then .kicklog. So maybe let me scroll, and then token parsed. And then from the token parsed, we have a property called given name. All right. So here, so when you type, maybe you do not get the auto completion for this one, but what we can do, I know that the property already exists. I will just suppress it with tsignore. And now in the menu component, all I need to do is to replace this one here in the line 53. I just want to replace this one with username. So now if I go back to the browser, we will see that now we will be displaying John for this connected user and Ali for this connected user. So for example, if I connect with a different one, so let me check another user, maybe we have this new user, or maybe John or Ali or something like that. So you see that the name now is displayed correctly. The only thing that we have, or like that might be improved from your side, is to persist the notifications, whether in the backend or even like find a way to cache the notifications, because each time we refresh the application, we lose the notifications that we have right here. All right, so this might be an exercise for you. Maybe also if you want some other improvements, what you can do is to add the count of the notifications right here. All right. Alright guys, that was it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it and I hope you learned from it. So again, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, share the video with your friends, and drop a comment and tell me what you want to see in the next video. Thank you so much and see you in the next one.